the sky is not the limit, so don't let doubt keep you from winning. In the darkness of night, hold on to the morning light. Help us see everything we can be.
Hey, what's up, everybody? Yours truly, back in the space, back in the place. Once again, Mickey Smith Jr. here with another opportunity to provide some educator encouragement. Why? To help you keep on going and ultimately create a sound 180 days of classroom instruction and harmony. I'm your friend in the profession, but I'm also your partner in the progression that is you, and helping you reach that place called your promise, your significance. That's why I always like to say, see the significance or see the sound, because each and every one of us has a unique personal significance that I call the sound. Look, guys, you know, in this travel that I do, I love to go into schools and provide educators not only encouragement, but transformative tools. I don't want to be that guy that just gives you a rah-rah speech, but I want to give you some principles that can help you make your next steps your best steps, and your next sounds your best sounds. And I had that opportunity here recently, had an opportunity to go up to Utah, specifically Utah State University. And as I was there, I was amazed that I literally, listen, I could not see the thing that I came to see. Now, anybody that's been to Utah knows that their probably greatest natural resource, aside from the great people that reside there, is just the tremendous landscape, the tremendous terrain, and the mountains, and the views. You know, how so many people told me it's God's country, right? Like, it's just so beautiful. But unfortunately, I was unable to enjoy that little piece of beauty because there's some wildfires in this present moment that are raging in California. I was driving, and I would literally be, I don't know, you know, maybe a few miles away from a mountain, a significant mountain. We're talking about the Rockies, y'all. And I'm looking, and I literally don't see anything. It's crazy. And then I get maybe a few miles, maybe a mile or two away from it, and it starts coming into view. And then when I begin to approach it to where we actually start going towards that mountain or on that mountain, and it's in full view. What am I trying to tell you guys? That a lot of times the things that are there are obscured. But I'll tell you this, I was speaking with somebody at that event, and I said, you know, they were apologizing because they're like, oh, we hate that you couldn't see the mountains. We hate that you couldn't see the scenery. I told them I just chose my attitude. I chose my perspective in this moment. And I said, honestly, I was pretty excited. Like my boys, I was pretty geeked up about this. And they were like, why were you so excited? Because I treated this moment like Christmas morning, meaning I took it as an opportunity to be amazed and surprised every time we got close to a mountain. And when I think about this, I think about individuals in our life, those trailblazers, those individuals that paved the way, that showed us what is possible. I always like to say they looked into the face of what others saw as impossible, but they chose to see I'm possible. One of those such individuals is Winston Churchill. I think most, if not all of us, are familiar with this historical giant, so to speak. And Winston Churchill, I remember learning and reading as a kid that as he was working to form the United Nations after World War II, he once famously said, never let a good crisis go to waste. I'm gonna tell you that again, guys. I need you to take on that Churchill mindset. Don't let this good crisis go to waste. Why? Because it's here for a reason. See, everything in life has a season and everything has a reason, but our job is to be able to see it. See, as a band director, I can walk into a room and I can see the impossible. Have you ever taught the Midget Mafia? Have you ever heard beginning band sounds? That is a sound few people would even touch with a 10-foot pole. But I'm here today to tell you that I get excited about the opportunity to work with beginners because it is the ultimate form of optimism and creativity. Teaching is the ultimate form of optimism and creativity. I can't think of a single profession that literally, if you just do what's asked, that you would operate in a greater form of optimism. Because we can be the sound to change the world. We can be the quote unquote sound, the significance that changes the world, but we have to make that active decision. Again, I see this thing called life as nothing more than a class. And again, the world that we're living in, as crazy as it may be, I just choose to see it as one massive classroom. And as a result, I'm fascinated with the origins and the process of things. Thus, you know, the beginning band director. I mean, who in their right mind would just love beginning band? Only somebody, only somebody that loves to see the origin, the germination, the development, the growth, the journey. Those are the individuals that I think thrive in a beginning band classroom. And for those that are not in beginning band, those that are in elementary general music, you know, the uh, lower school, and those that are in the middle school, and those that are in the high school, there's always a level of growth that I think all of us come to know and appreciate if we can see the significance. But I'll tell you this, when it comes to the word crisis, I found out something incredible. As I said before, it's a derivative. It's not the destination. It's a derivative. It derived, it came from something else. And watch this. Anything that comes from something else is going to something else too. But I don't want to get ahead of myself. I need you to understand something, that when we see crisis, you're not actually seeing crisis. See, when I studied the word crisis, I found that it derives from the word sift, SIFT. I want you to think about that. And if you need to pause and go Google what sift is, I challenge you today. I didn't say shift. I didn't say that other word either. I said sift. I said sift. Come on, y'all. Y'all stay with me. Nowadays, we don't really hear that word sift as much anymore. You know, it's kind of like an old school word. That's why I wanted to make sure I took my time for maybe some of my listeners from a particular generation. Maybe they don't have an appreciation for that word, but sift, it's a real word. And growing up as a little boy in a small rural Southwest Louisiana town by the name of Mossville, I had an opportunity to experience the old school. See, the old school is good school. Watch this. Watch this. Growing up old school in Mossville, Louisiana, I learned a lot about sift. Matter of fact, I would even share with you right now that the entire community itself was sifted. It's not even there anymore. If you Google it, you'll see a tragic tale about a forgotten community, an overlooked community, undervalued community, that literally the entire town was bulldozed, not a blade of grass left, not a tree stump, and a chemical plant was built on top of it. And an entire sense of community was lost. See, change is something I know all too well about. It's something I'm incredibly familiar with, maybe even too familiar with. And as many of us are grappling with loss, whether it's to the pandemic or to economic situations or civil unrest, we're all struggling and battling this thing called change. But I'm here to tell you that change is the one thing you can't defeat. You can't stop change. You can only hope to contain it. But even with that, there's only a measure of success that can be had. I think our victory is when we embrace the change, whether we like it or not. I say whether we like it or not because change is just like the weather, and you can actually determine your weather or not in this season. But you have to embrace the notion that change is inevitable. Again, nowadays you don't really hear that word called sift, but growing up in that little town, my grandmother Lily Mae Smith, that word was often used in our house. See, my grandmother Lily Mae, she cooked and she canned preserves, you know, things like jellies and fruit preserves. And she did this with figs and pears that I oftentimes would pick. Didn't really get a summer vacation, y'all. You got up at 5 in the morning, you got to work. And as she prepared these preserves in that small little kitchen down home in the Bayou State, I often saw her use this unusual utensil called a sifter. And the sifter, if you can imagine it, is a cylindrical device. It's a cylindrical contraption, and it looks like an oversized can, so to speak. And when the device is used, it's used in such a way that it allows for finely processed things like flour and baking soda, sugar, those types of things to go through. Now watch this. Sometimes when you use finely processed things, it can get in a season where it clumps up because of the environment. Maybe it gets moist and it loses its look, I'm going to do that. It loses its fineness, its granular nature, and it begins to clump up, right? And when you're trying to bake, you don't want things clumped up. You want them refined. And when she would pour that salt, or when she would pour that sugar, or when she would pour that flour or that baking soda, she'd pour those things in there. Every so often there was a clump. Every so often there was maybe a leaf that little Mickey in his rush would throw in there because he really wasn't paying attention. But watch this. Your finished product can't afford to have the extras. Your finished product can't afford to have those things that are not refined. So what the sifter does is, through a series of chain meal and different things, it allows only the processed things to come through. As the sugar and the spice and everything nice would fall through the sifter's fine strainers, any lumps or anything that wasn't processed, anything that wasn't refined, it couldn't come through. Man, I hope you're hearing me today. Somebody's catching this. I'm gonna say it again. Any of the things that weren't processed and refined were not in a position to come through. And I'm reminded of my grandmother in times like this. And I'm reminded of that sifter now more than ever. I believe that the crisis that we're currently in is not necessarily to break us or to cause us to fail, but it's an opportunity that will help refine us.
No longer will I be denied. Do exactly what I've been designed for. No longer will I be denied. Do exactly what I've been designed for. No longer will I be denied. Do exactly what I've been designed for.
When you think about your favorite teacher, you see that individual as a significant solution to who you were in a moment. And the truth is, our students see us as phenomenal. Somebody say, I don't feel phenomenal. Well, the truth is, being phenomenal ain't fair. Okay. But I'm here to tell you today that you are phenomenal. You were made for this moment, but you got to keep on going. Why? Because when we face it till we make it, we don't survive. We don't strive. We thrive, even in the midst of crisis. And innovation, if I can be honest with you, it's just a fancy word for change. And change is just a part of that sift. And sift, it's just a crisis. So get excited about the crisis, because the crisis didn't come to stay. Crisis came to make you stronger, to make you better. But only when we seize the opportunity of this current crisis, quote unquote, this current sift, this current innovation, this current change. Somebody said, Mickey, you the maestro of motivation. I wouldn't go that far, but I would say that we have a unique opportunity to create a sound that can bring significance and change to a world that needs it now more than ever. I challenge you to become part of something bigger than yourself, bigger than anything you could have done alone otherwise. I challenge you to see the sound. Do you get it now? To see the significance. I challenge you to see the good in every day, whether it wants to be good or not. See the significance, even in a crisis. Like Winston Churchill said, I never let a good challenge. I never let a good challenge go. I never let a good challenge go to waste. Don't waste the moment. This is a pivotal moment. And do me a favor, while you're doing that, while you're operating in your best sound, I want to challenge you to remember that the world we live in is a classroom, and the life you live is the class. So do me a favor, make your classroom sound, make your teaching epic, and I promise you, your legacy will be significant. Until
See everything we can be. You know the sky is not the limit, so don't let doubt keep you from winning. In the darkest of night, hold on to the morning light.